Thanks to Denise for reminding us, I had the opportunity to go to the screening of that Thich Nhat Hanh movie called Walk With Me this last Wednesday evening at the Roxy Theater. And I talked to Vivian just before I went, and I told her I was going to try to see if I could go. And when I talked to her the next morning, she said, well, what did you think of the movie? And I said, well, quite frankly, I was disappointed. And then we talked for another moment, and then I had to go. And after I hung up, I got to thinking, that was the most ignorant response. You know, thank goodness I was talking to Vivian, because she hears me say ignorant things a lot. But here I am, this guy that talks about constantly disappointment is the result of our own expectation. We create the disappointment. And how was I disappointed in going to see a movie about a man who I have revered for years? This man who was deported out of Vietnam in '66 after watching his country being blown apart by foreign countries for years, decades, and can walk and teach people how to live without hate, without judgment, with peace and acceptance and awareness. What was I expecting? I thought about this. What was I expecting out of this movie? Quite honestly, I thought, well, I'll just review that, and that'll be my talk on Sunday. Work done, don't have to think much. And then it'll also be like, as we all do, like winning the lottery. I went there deep down, subconsciously expecting I'm going to get the magic pill that's going to make it all right. Every one of us, I'm sure, from time to time, thinks we're going to find the magic potion, the magic pill. Hear the right word that's just going to fix everything. There ain't no such thing. And as I think back about this movie just said again what it is I revere about this man. In the movie, he takes people for walks. He's got this monastery and visitor center and retreat center in France. And he takes people for walks. And about every 15 minutes, he stops and asks that they be silent and be aware of the universe going on all around them, in this very space, in this very moment. And none of it is dependent upon you. It's going on without you. And your whole job is just to be, accept, and feel gratitude for that total harmony, that peace, that tranquility, and that amazing plan of life and going on all around you. Just walk and stop and be aware. I read a story, a little short story, I'd like to share with you. Seems like there was this investment banker on vacation down in Mexico. He was in this little, sleepy little coastal village and standing on the dock. And one of the local guys comes in with his little skiff. And he starts to get out of the skiff, and he's got 2 huge fish on the strainer. And he said, boy, those are beautiful fish. He said, well, thank you. He said, how long did it take you to catch them? He said, oh, not long. He said, well, why didn't you stay longer and catch more? He said, this is all we need to eat today. He said, you know, I sleep as long as I want. I get up when I want. I go fish for a little while. I come back and I spend time with my children. In the afternoon, I'd take a walk with my wife. We'd walk down the beach. And then we have supper and eat the fish that the ocean gave us. Then in the evening, I drink a little wine and play guitar with my friends. And the investment banker said, I'm an investment banker. I've got an MBA from Cornell. I'm going to give you some free advice that's going to change your life. He said, what you need to do is catch all the fish you can. Stay out there and catch all the fish you can, and then you can sell them. And the guy said, well, then what? Well, then with the profit from that, you can get a bigger boat and hire 2 or 3 guys to help you, and you'll catch even more fish. And the guy said, well, what then? Then you can buy a fleet of boats, have a bunch of people, and start being a major supplier of fish, of fresh fish in this country. And the guy said, well, what then? Then you can spread out to other companies, become a multinational corporation, and be a major food producer in the world. The guy said, well, what then? Then you can move to New York. Yeah, why? So you can market your company and you can sell it and make millions and millions of dollars. And I said, well, how long will all that take? He said, 20 or 30 years, I would say. He said, well, once I have all this money, then what am I going to do? He said, well, then you can retire. He said, well, what then? Well, you can find a little place, a little coastal village. You can sleep as long as you want, and go fishing when you want, and spend time with your family, and walk down the beach with your wife, and at night you can drink a little wine and play guitar with your friends. And the guy said, I see. Thank you. Took his fish and walked away. We make life so complicated sometimes. At this village that Thich Nhat Hanh has, every 15 minutes he has carillons, chimes that go off, kind of like Bok Tower down in Florida. I don't know if any of you have ever been there at the gardens, but every half hour these carillons go off down there. It's beautiful. But at Thich Nhat Hanh's place, they go off every 15 minutes. That's the sign. Silence and be aware of what's going on around you. Your breath, your pulse in your fingers, the nature, the other person you happen to be with, whatever your surrounding is, focus your total awareness on it and find the peace in that awareness. Wouldn't that be wonderful if we could, every little once in a while, do that? Just stop and transcend all the chaos and all the goings-on and all the busy stuff and just concentrate on what's going on right here, right now, right next to me and inside of me. Can you imagine the peace, the tranquility, and maybe the insight? And maybe you could understand a little more about all these expectations we have that complicate everything. I just summed up in a very 2 or 3 minutes exactly what you would experience if you went to France and spent a week. I did some checking. That little adventure costs on the average of about $12,000 per person. I saved you a fortune this morning. And if you'd like to maybe put like half that amount in the basket in the back, you'd still be way big bucks ahead. Stopping and being aware. That's the foundation for every bit of spiritual enlightenment or spiritual understanding or realization that any one of us may hope to accomplish or discover. Nobody's got the magic pill. Nobody's going to fix your life or change your life. It's an inside job. And you can only make the right changes when you take a look deep inside. A lot of changes are going to take place in our community over the next few years. And if we can a little better understand ourselves and understand what's going on right around us, we know that within us we have the wherewithal to be part of the positive changes, the good of the whole changes that are going to be required. I'm going to try to end on a very happy note today, maybe a light note, light, that's the right word. On your order of service, the second quote, look for the little everyday pleasures and get excited about the privilege of simply being human. I want to tell you a little story. I saw that quote and it reminded me of a story, and it's a little... Sierra, she's not really paying that much attention to me. This guy and his wife, Art and Martha, were getting up in years, and they were talking about death and passing on, and which one might go first, and wondering if there was truly an afterlife. So they talked about it for a while, and they made a deal. Whichever one of them passed first, if there was life after death, they'd somehow get in touch with the one left behind and let them know. So, not long after that, Art passed away. And time went by, and a couple of years passed. And Martha had pretty well given up hope. And one night she was getting ready for bed. Martha! Art? Who'd you think it'd be? Well, so much time has passed. Well, it took me a long time to learn how to do this. She said, well, is there life? Well, I guess you could call it that. Well, tell me about it. Tell me about your life. Tell me about your world. He said, well, quite honestly, I get up in the morning, I have sex, I eat a little something, I go out to the golf course, I spend all day on the golf course. I come back, I eat a little something, have sex, go to sleep. Tomorrow's just like today. Today's just like yesterday, over and over. She said, oh, I'm so happy that your life is so good. Heaven must be a wonderful place. He said, heaven? I wouldn't know about that. I'm a rabbit in Arizona. The privilege of being human. The privilege of being human. It truly is a privilege. We are the only species known to us that can actually create our tomorrow. We can create our mood. We can create our now. We can create consciousness for the good or for otherwise. It's a great privilege, but it's also a great responsibility. It truly is. Are we up for it? I know we are, because we're human beings, and we're family, and we're one. and we truly care about one another, and we're focused on the good of the whole. And so it is. Let's stand up.